worst signings of the summer in an 11, and then do the same thing for the best 11. And yeah, this is my list. So we're going to get started immediately with the goalkeeper position, which I think it's fair to say Andre Onana. I think pound for pound, the impact that he's had negatively, I should say, on Manchester United has, you know, it has totally helped drag them down to 10th. It's put them in a position where they have to, kind of either see improvement from him or else, things might get even worse. Uh, I don't think Andre Onana was brought in to be a shot stopping goalie, but he's had a few howlers, and quite honestly, his distribution, which he was lauded for, just isn't showing up this season. This is a squad which is a 4-3-3, the formation. I decided to keep it positional with the signings, so not, an excessive amount of goalies or an excessive amount of midfielders or anything. But at left back, and it pains me to say this, we have Milos Kerkez, the Hungarian left back, now playing for Bournemouth. I hoped he'd do great things for Bournemouth, and he's played 8 matches and has 0 goals. Um, it just not looking great. He's been targeted because he's not the best defensively. He's more, a forward-thinking kind of fullback, but he's still young, so he could bounce back from this, and Bournemouth as well could bounce back from this. We'll see how they get on this season, but not too promising for Kirkes so far. At right back, we have a free transfer, if I'm not mistaken, in Ashley Young, and honestly, I hate to put Ashley Young in there, but I've seen some Everton games. He doesn't look that great. He's obviously older. He's 38, but I couldn't really think of a right back, so Ashley Young kind of has to go there. He just looks off the paces, and it feels like he's playing out of position, even though he has played as a fullback before in his career. It just leaves a lot to be lacking, and I can't think of really any other right backs that were really as bad as Ashley Young so far this season. Next up is Dara O'Shea, who signed for Burnley. He's, still kind of young. I think he's 24, if I'm not mistaken. So not like the most promising, but to join Burnley and to start shipping so many goals, not a great look. He's looked kind of, subpar standard, let's say, for the Premier League. And I'm not saying that he was necessarily an awful person to sign, because he still is young and you never know with Burnley. Maybe he can develop and maybe he can improve as the season progresses. But I would have just signed a more kind of proven center back. Similarly, Brentford signed Nathan Collins from Wolves, and he just hasn't looked great. It's been a weird kind of lateral move. 2 Irish center backs, so sorry to Ireland. Last I checked, they were losing to Greece too, so that's kind of tough. But I'm not like really inspired by Nathan Collins. It's just kind of like a really random move for Brentford. You would expect for them to get somebody who could, really shore up the back with a signing like that. But I think they spent like something like 20, 30 mil on him. I don't think it's money well spent personally. I think it's just kind of fodder. No offense to Nathan Collins, once again, but it just hasn't worked out so far, and I don't see it working out really. Next up, we have Yuri Tielemans. Yuri Tielemans, another free transfer, the second free transfer on the list, and honestly, he's had a falling out with Unai Emery already. The matches I've seen him play, he hasn't looked great, and he's not featuring a ton. He's on the bench now. Not a great look for Yuri Tielemans. He's 26. His career isn't necessarily going the way many people had anticipated, himself included, I would imagine. Just really bleh signing. Another bleh signing is another Burnley signing in the shape of Sander Berg. Sander Berg left Sheffield United, who, he had previously, I believe, been relegated with. And, now he's here at Burnley after leaving Sheffield, and he just doesn't kind of move me. He doesn't look like a player that can transform midfield. He plays okay sometimes, I guess, but I had high hopes for Sonderberg. He hasn't really delivered on them. And the final midfielder, and I'm going to use him as a midfielder because God knows where he plays, Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz, I think, has a very good shout to be flop of the season. I think he scored a penalty for Arsenal. Um, I don't really see where he fits in. I don't really love how he fits in. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's a little lackluster for Kai Havertz. He's a player who's won the Champions League and he's struggling to score or assist. I know it's a new system. I know, he's not really got a proper position, but that's kind of been his issue his whole career. Like, is he a winger? Is he an attacking mid? Is he a false nine? Is he a center forward? Is he a center mid? There's so many positions where Kai Havertz plays and spaces he occupies, and none of them really move me. Like, he could do a lot of things, but none of them to like an incredibly high level, it seems. Um, I just don't see this working out for the money. I mean, he just looks like an absolute flop. I'll say it. And finally, the front line, and one of these players is a player on loan, but it'll make sense at the very end. So at left wing, we have Justin Kluivert. Probably just butchered Kluivert's name, but hey, we're moving forward. I mean, he's played what? Like, I think it's 6, 7 games, 0 goals, 0 assists. I know he's relatively cheap, but there hasn't been a lot of left wingers that have flopped this season, it feels like, um, in terms of signings at least. It just doesn't really, I don't know. I don't see it working out. He's a player who failed at Roma. He seems to be failing at Brentford or Bournemouth right now. I just can't really see him being a player that's Premier League standard ever. Like, 8 games, and you're struggling to score and assist. I mean, I know you're at Bournemouth, but you're expected to be the outlet when you're signed, and just having that kind of freedom. And he's a fairly quick guy, but he just has no end product. What is there to really say about Justin Kluivert besides he's kind of like all flair and no finish, unfortunately. At striker, and this one also pains me to include in the list, but Raul Jimenez just does not seem like he's going to work out at Fulham. Fulham aren't doing too well this season. He hasn't been, at his scoring heights since, unfortunately, his head injury. And I just feel sorry for him. I hope he finds his form, because if he found his form and he started tearing it up for Fulham, he'd be the best comeback story of maybe Premier League history. Just like as an individual player to be able to go on and do that. But, he's getting older. Mitrovic was sold. He didn't really replace him. He brought in Jimenez. And now Fulham's kind of paying the price, unfortunately. And finally, we have Nicola Zaniolo. Zaniolo is a player who hasn't really looked the best at Aston Villa. He's not contributing with goals or assists. He is on loan from Galatasaray. But the reason I include him on this list is because not only has he kind of been mid, but he's also getting investigated for betting on himself or just generally illegal betting in Italy or during his time in Italy. And I don't know. I don't know what this man's career trajectory will look like, but that's just crazy to me. Like, to bring in a player on loan and for this to happen, tough look for Aston Villa, and I think because of that, he's got to be on the list. But that's my list. Make sure to comment down below. I'm Sideline Sedo. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's kind of a new type of video I'm trying out. I want to hear who your biggest flop 11 is in the Premier League for the 23-24 season so far. Subscribe if you're new. Like the video if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sideline Sedo. Peace.